Hi guys, Yvette Carol speaking. Here to read Mrs Parata and the Cuckoo by Ruth and Bob Darroch. Mrs Parata was up early to watch the sunrise. She was breathing in the sweetness of the damp violets and enjoying the glow on her kowhai trees that were dripping with golden blooms. The dawn chorus of birds was loud with bells, whistles and chirps when she heard a new call. Fui, 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 phew, phew. There in the branch of the kowhai was a shining cuckoo, the voice of spring. Mrs Parata was very excited because the violets, the kowhai and the shining cuckoo all told her that the whitebait would be in the river. She hurried to her shed to check out her net. Rats, double rats, she said to herself, when her rummaging came up with a net that was chewed to bits. Now I'll have to go to town to buy some new netting and fix it up. Ah well, at least I'll be able to visit my family as well. She packed some rewena bread and a couple of smoked paurori, wrapped in silver beet and linen newspaper to keep them cool. These went into the bottom of her kite. Then she went to the violet patch and cut some flowers. She made them into posies and put rubber bands on the stalks to hold them together. She filled the top of her basket with the posies and sprayed them with a mist of water. Now she was ready. People on the bus couldn't resist buying Mrs Parata's violets, so she had enough money to pay for her bus fare and buy some netting. The bread and fish would be a nice treat for her family's lunch. Her son Joe was staying with his sister Kira and her family. Joe had been at sea for months fishing in the vast, cold Southern Ocean. Mrs Parata was looking forward to seeing them all, but first she bought her netting. Then a little book in a second-hand shop caught her eye. It had a picture of a cuckoo on it. She decided to buy it, to show her grandchildren and tell them about the cuckoo she had heard that morning. At Kira's house, there were hugs for everyone, but Mrs Parata noticed that Kira looked tired. The children's mattresses were on the floor in their mum's room, and the children seemed scratchy. Joe had the children's room, and it looked like his bag had exploded, whilst his clothes were everywhere. The dishes weren't done, and Joe was lying on the couch. The little house was a mess. When they had lunch, Joe ate the best of the fish and most of the bread. After lunch, Mrs Parata decided to tell the children about the shining cuckoo. She showed them the picture of the cuckoo chick inside a grey warbler's nest. It told them how the cuckoo spends the winter in the hot Pacific Islands, then comes back to New Zealand to lay its eggs. Instead of making its own nest, it puts its egg in a little grey warbler's nest, Mrs Parata explained. The grey warbler's nest is like a tiny sock hanging up. It has a neat round hole in one side and is lined with thistledown to make it very soft, she told them. Then she explained that the warbler's eggs, that the baby cuckoo hatches first and pushes the warbler's eggs out onto the ground. Then the grey warbler mother spends all her time looking after the cuckoo baby, who grows much bigger than its little warbler parents. Aroha laughed. But Gran, that's just like Uncle Joe. He comes from far away and eats all our food, and we have to sleep on the floor. Mrs Parata peeked at Joe lying on the couch. His eyes popped open and she could see him going pink. A few minutes later, he was off on his motorbike. When Joe came back, he had a big box of groceries and a box of chocolates. "I'm sorry, Kira," he said. "I've been just like a cuckoo in your nest. It was just so nice to be in a real bed and eat homemade food and not have to work hard for a few days. I think it's time to go now and let these kids have their bedroom back again." "How about I take you home, Mum?" he added. "I'd like to help you catch some whitebait. It'll make a nice change from orange ruffy. Then I'll dig your kumara patch for you." Mrs Parata smiled to herself. She was very happy. Yes, it would be good to have him come and help with some things. Jo had learned a lesson from the cuckoo. The song went through her mind. Fui, 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 phew, phew. Mrs Parata and the Cuckoo.